All right. So, and Mark and the attendees, you can see your friends and clients that are
All
joining
right,
us.
great. Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome, everybody. Come on in. Come on in. The water's fine. So welcome, everybody. We are building our attendees. Thank you for coming in. Darletta, thank you for coming in. Michelle, Lauren, Omar, Robert, Roz. Hey there, Roz. Hi, Ryan. Scott, Stephen, welcome everybody. We've got a nice sized group already, and I'm sure there'll be a few more folks to trickle in as we go here. But welcome, welcome. Hi there, Beatrice, and congratulations on winning the prize last webinar. B, I'm not sure if there's going to be any kind of prize this time around, but you're making a good return on your investment for showing up for these webinars, I hope. So I know that the value for everybody is going to be in the information and the wisdom from our speaker who is here with me today. Hi, Krisstina. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, hello. Yes, it's such an honor to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, likewise. I had the privilege of being on your show last week, which is Wealthy, Wise. Can you, very quickly, can you just sort of introduce yourself and share a bit about you as an expert guest for our webinar together today? Who is Krisstina Wise?
Oh gosh, what a loaded question. If I try to describe myself these days, the way I am a businesswoman. I've had many businesses. I just say kind of the quintessential business owner entrepreneur. I've built many businesses. I've had some really nice successes and a couple good exits. I've had some abysmal failures, but I can't stop creating. And so I've been known as a startup queen. I've been known as just a business and wealth advisor. But I'm a money educator. So I'm a business and money educator. I don't go on the planning advice side. So I help people learn how to think with money and how to learn how to operate personal and business finance for wealth creation. And then once we create wealth as a mindset and as a system and a structure and a lifestyle, then we have a form of wealth, i.e. known as cash in many capacities, then to work with those like you, Mark, where our philosophy for how to invest money and grow wealth is a little bit unconventional or counter-conventional. It's more, a lot of it might serve in more of an alternative type finance mentality. So I really educate and invest. I'm an investor myself, and I'm all about portfolio and showing real wealth on the balance sheet. But all of my wealth is really alternative. So I built my wealth through an alternative mindset and an alternative type of investing. But I don't advise as where to place assets. I just know where I've placed my own, and then I share my philosophy and why the where. And then I've teamed up, just with a few people like you that I think just have their integrity and their ethics and their kind of unconventional approach that's really about real wealth and not about selling products. Like you, that just, the few that I really trust in the industry that I believe are really doing great work to really help people set up their wealth in a really sustainable way that is helping people live what I call wealthy lives.
So, the metaphor that goes through my mind, Krisstina, before we get into your content you have to share together today, and welcome everyone as you're continuing to join. Hi there, Adam. Hi, Bao. And hi, Dominique. So my question is, or I guess my metaphor I'd like to bring up is, if I had the choice between being, if I was a professional golfer, like say, pick any famous one these days, the one that comes to my mind still is Tiger Woods. If I had the choice between just having his clubs or just having his swing, I, of course, would choose his swing. I want the swing. The clubs don't matter. And the same is true with, financial metaphors here, right? I would prefer the philosophy, the strategy over some sort of financial product. Products are just the afterthought. And too many times we get caught up in the smoke and mirrors of financial products that are sold to us by retail investment advisors, I would say. And I don't care if you've got the best whole life policy designed the bank on yourself way, as we talk about. If you don't have the right swing, you can still end up in the weeds. So I think what you guys are all going to get out of, at least a part of what you'll get out of our conversation together today, is the swing. What are some top 10 steps to being financially immune how to pandemic proof your financial life, and more than that, your whole life. How do we pandemic proof our entire life? And so, Krisstina, can you describe who will this webinar be for, and who is this explicitly just not for? I think that'll really help our listeners.
Yeah, so this, hopefully, a lot of when I teach money fundamentally. It's the fundamental mindsets and mechanics of how to learn how money operates, what the universal laws and principles are that must be followed. And then once we understand the fundamentals specifically, like you said, there's all sorts of different types of clubs that one can choose. But so when we work on the swing, so a lot of what I'm going to share is fundamental. I mean, it's applicable to everyone, but where I really enjoy taking the conversation are to those that want to learn and get good with money. Like that's really intention. And then two, my background is variable income earners. And so what I teach, and I think how I teach, is very applicable to those that don't have a consistent paycheck, because when you're a business owner, when you're an entrepreneur, there's the variability of that. And that's where finances tend to be more difficult, because how do you manage your money when you're never quite sure how much is coming in? I've never had the same paycheck twice in my entire life. It's always variable. And so that's even where I teach. The methodology I teach came out of trying to figure out, like, how do I build wealth when I don't know how much money is coming in? So that's ultimately, and so I've given that a distinction for those that this does really resonate with, is what I call the micro business owner. And the micro business owner, meaning we're business owners, we eat what we kill is how that works. But there's different sizes of businesses and different types of businesses. And some people are small business owners, but the business is really the system and machine. Maybe it's throwing out a product, and where the operator of the machine is some type of business owners, which ultimately means in that case we're replaceable. Micro business owners, we really are the skeleton of the business. We are what we're selling, or a big function of it. So what that means when it comes to money, it's more difficult to separate the two, because if we're going to build wealth, it's very important as a business owner. The number one thing that I find with those that I work with, again, on the education side for micro business owners, is they don't really separate their business money from their personal money, which is crucial, because they kind of are their money. So it's these blurred lines, because it's all of our money, but it's really not. Because as a business owner, if we wear the business owner hat, the number one job of a business owner is to be a good steward of the business's money, to build a business, to create sustainable profit, to reduce the variability of the month to month. When we're focused on top line revenue and all of like sales and how many new clients we're going to sell, if it's financial, if we're selling financial planning, it's like how many new clients, then that's top line revenue. And that's where a lot of micro businesses get stuck, is that they're just focused on that top line. How many clients do I need to bring in to hit these kind of quote unquote income numbers? And that's not a business owner. Business owners looking at the whole structure of the financial system of the business for sustainable profitability. And then we're just a role in the company that maybe we're the top advisor or the top employee, if you will, that's very much that our performance inside the business is very much a big part, if not the largest majority of the revenue, if not all the revenue of the company. But at the same time, we're not our business. We need to back out and look at profit. And it's through understanding from the business finance that it's the steward of the profitability and the sustainability of the business, and then how we move that money out of the business. I see entrepreneurs, they keep too much money in the business, or they're not keeping anything in the business. But then it's how we move our money, because this is a cash flow method. Money has to move, money has to flow. So how we flow our money from our business to our household, because what our business is, in my point of view as micro business owners, our business is just our income making machine. It's not our wealth machine. It's not even necessarily about the valuation of the business as micro business owners. Like, we can't go sell ourselves, so to speak. So we can't exit ourselves 3x. Once we go, the business really has no value, because we are that essential value of the business. So then our business is just our income making machine. And the better we are at the game of business and the better at the game of maximizing profitability that's based on revenue generation and keeping expenses at a certain percentage for profit, the more money we make. And that means we get to generate higher incomes. That's why I love being a business owner and entrepreneur. There's really no ceiling to how much money I can make. Nobody can decide that for me. The only limit is my own business skills and my own money skills that allow me to, that might top off that profitability or how much income I can make. So profit becomes income once we move it from our business to our household. So now our household, how we move money through our household intentionally, systematically, and like as a practice, as an intentional practice, just as serious about how we run our household finance and our household as a business as we do as our business as a business. That's our wealth creation machine. So how we move money through how well we move money through our household ultimately determines then how much money we're going to have, and then how much money we're going to be able to then flow into the creation of assets and building that balance sheet. So it's a full financial system from beginning to end, but it has these three different parts. So to answer your question, I don't have anything that's a short answer. So I apologize for my long-windedness to answer one short question. Ultimately, who usually resonates most from this are my small micro business owners.
Well, and there's millions, tens of millions across this country who need to hear your message, Krisstina. So I think we're on the right track here. And a lot of our clients, many of whom I see on our list today, and so hello everyone, many of you guys are micro business owners, which is exactly why I thought Krisstina would be a great fit and a value to everyone here. Whether you're doing e-commerce business through an online platform like Amazon or otherwise, or you've got a small retail shop. I know that there's some professionals that have retail shops and or professional services like doctors and dentists and so forth. We all of us are being impacted by an outside force, and it is a virus, but it's also a financial virus. And we've talked previously about how we were financially sick long before this virus showed up on the stage. But I think what you're describing, Krisstina, sounds a lot like a digestive system for our money. The business is the income making machine, but it's processed all the way through our whole life, down to our family and into our hopefully our warehouse of wealth. So hopefully we've got a nice system we've got a good gut flora, bacteria that help, process that money. We've got a budget, in other words, bugs in our system that help keep us healthy. How do we stay financially immune when, there's things outside of our control that might come and force all of us to stay at home, for example, when your business might be reliant on employees or maybe even just you getting out and hustling, when we can't literally get out and hustle. What do we do to stay, not only immune, but to be resilient in such troubling times?
Yeah, and I really loved, so everybody listening, Mark was on my podcast last week, and I just loved when I said financial immunity and some of the, the metaphors you were using. Really that is like you had even mentioned, like, when you say the word financial immunity, we've probably been sick for a long time. We've not been, in general, as a country in general, probably not everybody listening here, but, we've been a little bit financially sick. And then those that are most vulnerable to getting the virus, the COVID virus right now, are those that weren't healthy going into it. I'm not too worried myself. If I get it, I'm just not too worried personally because I've been focused on my personal health for a long time. So I'm very confident that one, I can be immune to it. And if not, I'm going to be okay because I'm healthy. Now there's no guarantees ever, but I believe I'm less at risk than somebody that came in and already has diabetes or has high blood pressure or has these other comorbid type things that make one more vulnerable. So what we want to do now is we want to make ourselves as least vulnerable as possible as micro business owners. Micro business owners are very vulnerable to what's happening because our businesses are really affected. I don't know about you, Mark, but it breaks my heart a little bit being a small micro business owner myself. And I applied for the EIDL and I applied for the PPP. And then I didn't get anything, I didn't get money yet. I did get some EIDL, which is nice. But even with the PPP, I was passed over the first round and I might be passed over the second round. And then I'm seeing who's getting it. Well, the LA Lakers got it, and Shake Shack got it, and Ruth Chris got it. I'm like, WTF? Like, so,
Yeah.
it's like we're like first impacted. We don't have the 50 million sitting in the bank like the Lakers do and Shake Shack does. They both gave the money back after some pressure, but we don't have the 50 million cash sitting there. And we get very affected by this. And, we're the small guys, so we don't really get looked after that way, just kind of the way things work. There's no politics in that one way or another. It's just reality. So if we're going to be immune, what I wrote is I wrote a talk. It's called the 10 Things to be as financially immune as possible for micro business owners right now. So we won't have time to cover the 10, and I'll try to talk really fast. And I'm just going to share a few, if that's okay. And then I wrote a piece. It's called, if you go to financiallyimmune.com, it's all 10 steps. And I'm going to use a couple metaphors to start us off. The first metaphor I'm going to use, I just use it, is the Titanic. So we've been floating on the Titanic. We're making money. We're doing pretty good. I'm in business, and money's never easy, but in the grand scheme of things, business is going. And coming into 2020, if anybody was like me, I had a really nice 2019, and the economy is doing well. My business is doing well. I'm excited for 2020. I've got some great growth strategies and scale strategies. I've made investments in my business by hiring new people because I had the history, and it's like, bam, 2020 is the year for growth and scale. Super excited about it. January and February, we're already looking good. And then March hits, and we're all just like, what happened? Oh my God, like nobody's prepared. The rug was pulled right out from underneath us. So it's like, for me and others I've talked to, it's like, oh, we've been on the Titanic. We've been going from England, and we've got these great plans, and we get to New York City, and we're floating, and we're in our tuxedos and our ball gowns, and we're drinking champagne and having 5-course meals, and we're putting on some extra pounds because it just feels so good in life, and we're philosophizing and self-actualizing and plant medicine, and I don't know what people are doing, but because when times are good, we're in a lot of more esoteric, and it feels like this is going to go on forever, and it feels really good. And that's great. We should be doing those things. But all of a sudden we just hear a crash, and we just hit an iceberg. So what that means, the second that that ship hit the iceberg, there was the strategy to get to New York was off the table, no longer applicable. That growth strategy, or whatever that was, if we're going to try to compare it, you might as well just burned that ship plan, that flight plan, so to speak. Game over. So what's the strategy the second we hit that iceberg? What is the instantaneous strategy? It's not growth or scale. We might as well burn up that plan. Now it's survival. Now it's, where are the lifeboats? Where are the life vests? What food do I take with us? Who gets on the boats first? Do we have enough boats? Where are the exits? We're not talking about what vintage wine we're going to have for dinner tonight. We're talking about how much water do we need on the boat that's going to last until we get saved, assuming we can be saved, or who's going to be paddling during what. But the point is that now we're in a survival strategy. So the building immunity is about survival, because we can't survive financially if our business doesn't survive. There's no thrive, or there's no big opportunity on this other side of this. If we go down with the ship, game over. So that's just the metaphor, is like, now the mindset that we're going into in the business strategy and the financial strategy is, how do we survive the time of uncertainty? That's what we're moving towards. And so these are the survival actions, is the first few things to do to get in the lifeboat. Once we're in the lifeboat and things, we can do, that's all we can do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is a metaphor. It's like we've been dropped in a swamp, and we don't have a compass. We don't have a map for out, and it's just very scary. All of a sudden we're in one environment, and now we're in another. And there's dense foliage, and there's a snake pit, and there's a big spider pit, and there's quicksand, and our nervous system's overrun because we're dropped in the swamp. But if we had a map and a compass that really told us the exact directions to get out of this thing, we're going to actually feel a lot better. Still survival mode, still in the swamp, still a little scary, still precarious, but we have a map and we have some tools. So that's what my financiallyimmune.com is. It's just the map out of this damn thing. Or at least we're still in it, but a guide to help us get out. So
You
the
bet.
first thing when we're talking about survival strategy, and I've been through 2 market corrections before, so a lot of this was just like go straight to it because I've been here before. The first time I was in a financial correction, I got my financial ass handed to me because I didn't know what to do. The second time I was able to survive it and came out of that one pretty well, built a lot of wealth during that last correction. And now, again, kind of that toolbox, I would say it's a little deja vu, but even better. Prepared better, sure, a little bit more financial immunity, i.e. cash. But at the same time, I was able to act quicker because I had that history. And so what we want is peace of mind. What we want is to know we can survive. We have enough water and we have a lifeboat and we have life vests. So the first thing from a business point of view, I'm going to be talking business and household. And I teach a concept that your household is your business and become your own banker, which that's where Mark and I completely agree. This is about we're the bank. We're building these things. And we do that two ways. We do it through our household and we do it through our business. And we are our own bank and through this, how we move our money. So on the business side is if you're a small business owner, micro business owner, if you're not, the other side's going to be applicable. But the first thing is a business term that I like everybody to write down is a word called burn rate. And so what happens, especially in business or money altogether, when I'm educating, it's educating like distinctions and it's educating know your numbers. You have to know your numbers. And it's many of us don't know our numbers, even if we are business owner entrepreneurs. And what I mean, know your numbers ready at hand. If I asked you, what is your burn rate? Do you know that? Do you know the number right offhand? If you don't now, you want to know it. You have to know your burn rate right now. It's one of those things that's always something probably good to know. But if you don't know it now it's crucial. Now this is like being in the ER and we have vital signs. We're watching the vital signs. We have to know the vitals. So the vital of the business right now is your burn rate. And so the goal right now, the survival strategy goal is to ask yourself the question, what is my burn rate? And then how do I lower my burn rate to just survival? The question you would ask is go through every single line item expense in your business and ask this very specific question. Is this expense essential to my business's survival?
That's great, Krisstina.
If it's not essential, we get rid of it.
Let me step in for just a minute. Guys, in the chat box, if you'd be willing, jot down, take a moment, and this is your time. So you can write it directly to the panelists only, or you can write it to everyone if you're willing to, no problem. Think about your finances right now. What is one thing, no shame, I don't care what it is, and you don't have to, maybe you get like gold minted toothpaste and you decide maybe that's not essential. Is that even a thing, Krisstina? Maybe that is a thing. I don't know.
It might be.
But what's one thing that you feel comfortable sharing with the group or just with us, just Krisstina and I, that would be involved? Like what would be part of that? Throw it in the burn pile. And while you're doing that, and I'll read some of them aloud as long as folks are willing to let me do that. I'll only read aloud what is sent to the attendees, just so you guys know. What that makes me think of, Krisstina, is our fever. Again, you might even, I don't want to jump to the punch here, but again, we're trying to be financially immune. And if our burn rate is too high, we're burning up, right? We're burning cash. Literally, we're burning cash up. And, lowering that burn rate gives me a lower temperature, which, is really important when you're trying to face, it just shows it's a sign and a sign of financial health whenever you can kind of bring those unneeded expenses down, the 5th Netflix subscription or whatever it might be. So.
Yeah, right on. I love that, Mark. I just love how you have connected these. And so I wrote that down. It is like a fever. We want to get that fever down.
And Beatrice writes, I need to go through all of my monthly subscriptions. I've signed up and cancel a bunch of them. I totally with you on that. Totally, Beatrice. I think that's a really important one. And someone else, Stephen writes, dining out, which is not hard to do right now, but as the country opens up again, that might be difficult. So dining out, clothing. Michelle writes, holding off on doing upgrades to my rentals. That's true. Yeah, we don't have to have the gold-plated toilets or bathroom mirrors, I guess, either right now too. Good. Thanks, Michelle.
And these are good. And so again, I'm going to split these up. So some of you might not be business owners, And the first thing we're doing, we do it side by side. Our household is a business. I teach, treat your household as a business and business finance. But so in our business, for those of you that are business owners, we're looking at our business first. And it's going through every single line item expense over the last 30 days, the 30 days before that, and the 30 days before that. Every single. Now, there's usually two categories. There's your like high level fixed expenses, and then like your monthlies or that type of thing. So when you're looking at things, for example, this is where it's very difficult to be a small business owner, but typically for those that maybe have retail, our biggest expenses are rent and payroll. So if you work out of your house right now, or always have, then rent's maybe not part of it, but it's looking at going through, is this expense essential to my survival? And so, for example, one of the most difficult calls I had to make as a small micro business owner is I had hired staff for my growth period that role was no longer relevant to survival, to the business surviving. In fact, that outlay of payroll cash might sink my small business. So if the business goes completely down, then everybody loses anyway. So it's just looking at these, and that's like it's triage. If we're in the ER, it's like triaging, like, okay, we have to triage this. But we're just looking at that. And then same thing on your business expenses, kind of what you guys are talking about. When my business was, had surplus, and I might have technology. Mine might have been Skype that I paid for, something called BeLive and Zoom. And I had all three of those technologies because they served different, they were overlap, but they had unique uses that I used them separately and differently. But then when I looked at it, it's like just one, I need to cut two. And really looking at the bones. I chose Zoom as the one to keep and let the other two go. So it's just going through all of those once, and then you go through it again. And now the second question you would ask is it negotiable? So maybe rent is negotiable right now. Maybe payroll is negotiable, where one of my staff member, I said, okay, can't do the fixed at what we're doing, but if you want to stay on, I need to lower the base, and we'll just make it we'll just restructure the compensation is based on sales. That way we're all restructuring, we're pivoting things, and it's up to you. I understand if you need to look for something else right now, but so it's restructuring or renegotiating. I had one client, for example, she has a med spa and she has expensive rent. So I worked with her, we negotiated some forbearance and a little bit on rent. But she also had high equipment. She has these $100,000 Fraxel machines. I'm like, you paid what for those? And she's like, yeah, Krisstina, all that nice, Fraxel stuff, the microdermabrasion we do on your face, those machines are really expensive. But she financed those. So on average, they're about a 13-14% finance fee. We went to renegotiate those and we got them down to 5% fixed. So it was a way to negotiate. Now, the great news is, silver lining with that is her rent's going to be lower and those payments are going to be lower after the fact because it's negotiated permanently. So she's going to survive, and then she's going to actually even be in a better position expense-wise coming out of this. But it's just going through. And now I'm sharing what to do. And I want to become more clear as to why to do it. We can teach people what to do, but when they don't know the why, we're not thinking for ourselves. And I want us to be able to know why so we can make decisions on our own very quickly. So we do that on our business side. Now, just what you guys are saying, we do that exact same thing on our household. And it's looking at every single expense and saying, is this personal expense, this household expense, is it essential to my household survival right now? So we just want to get the burn rates individually, our business, and individually our household, as tight as we can. We can always add later. It's like, we put on a few extra pounds. I don't know, has anybody else been on a cruise? I have to avoid cruises because it's a guaranteed 5 pounds. I'm going to gain that 5 pounds. I'm pretty disciplined when it comes to food and exercise, but I will not get off the cruise without at least having 5 more pounds on me, because that food's everywhere, right?
Me too.
So this is just getting those extra pounds off that have kind of been on with the buffet, the daily buffet, and we're just getting down so we're strong and mobile and we've got the extra weight off. We don't want to carry any extra weight right now. You can put it back on later if you want to, but that's just it, because we're just getting down to the lowest burn rate possible. This is just going to carry us out, and there's a reason why we want our burn rate low. And even in the household, we're looking, usually there's the more expensive fixed expenses like rent or mortgage, car payments, maybe some sizable other debt payments. And just looking at those first, is there any way? Maybe now's a great time to refinance the mortgage. Some of my clients have refinanced their cars for lower payments. We're just saying, can we get any burn rate down at all possible? And then look at the other things, like what I call the below the line expenses, which are versus kind of over here, I had 3 technologies on my business. Maybe we have something like, oh, we're paying for Hulu and cable and Netflix and Amazon and something else like ESP sports, such and sports you can't even watch anyway right now. So maybe it's like, if we just did one, what are we going to do this? Just we're trying to lower the burn rate and find extra money wherever we can. And some, there's a couple different mindsets. I've had some like, well, man, this kind of sucks. I'm having to reduce things or not do my clothing, not eating out. And so a reframe might be, is make it a challenge. Like, let's just say for the hell of it, for 90 days, what could we do as a family? Let's just see, what could we do on the lowest amount of spend possible? What could we do? Let's make a game out of it. We can always add back later, but let's just see what we're capable of. So it can even be a family game in a way that can be really fun, because I think many times when we start adding on that weight, we don't know how good it feels to be in a 1 or 2 sizes smaller in clothes. And once you lose those extra pounds and you lost a dress size or a pant size or 2, you're like, I want to stay here. This actually feels a lot better. I mean, I really don't care about the ice cream every night because I actually feel better in this size of jeans. And so this is the same thing that might be some silver lining that comes out of this exercise. But ultimately, the takeaway is we want to add those burn rates together. So burn rate in business, burn rate in households separately, and you need to know these numbers. Top of mind like that. If I asked you, I'd want you to be able to just recite them right away and then add them together. What's the total together as micro business owners? Because the total burn rate is what we're responsible for.
Fantastic. And, you can make it a collaborative game or even a competitive game, for folks that are into collaborative. Maybe you all together, if you can reach $1,000 a month saved, maybe you put, $1,000 one of the months that you saved of all your different savings, burn rates on the family. Maybe that's your first mini, weekend getaway, at a nice bed and breakfast once those are open again. Or if it's a, competitive thing, I had a family who competed to see who could lose the most pounds over a certain 3 months. You could do the same with who can find the money in the business. You could have all of your employees, 1099s, or your family members on the family side, Krisstina, who can find various ways to make or keep the money that you guys earn as a family. So really smart idea.
Yeah, and just make it fun. And I love what Robert says here. This is another piece. So same thing, when we first went through our business and we got rid of everything that wasn't essential to survival, then we went through to negotiate. We do the same thing on the household. So these are things, it's good financial stuff to do anyway. Like usually, we're working with my clients, we do a once a year where you're reviewing everything and negotiating and just cleaning things up. It's like a spring cleaning for your finances, so to speak. But if we haven't been doing this, now it's a great time. Go review all your insurance policies. Look for money. Just look for money anywhere. Is it negotiable? Is it negotiable? And I did that. I went to all my insurance and same thing and just, all right, can I get this down?
I love what you're doing here, Krisstina, because you're reframing a tragedy, a national tragedy. And of course, our prayers and our concerns are with those that are physically affected by the virus and or has lost their job as a result. But one of the questions you might, as all of us might ask ourselves is, what does this financial tragedy or health tragedy, what does this tragedy make possible? And I love your thought here, Krisstina, because you're bringing a new frame to the problem. You're bringing a solution-oriented mindset. And I think that's a really smart approach to see what could we now do that we wouldn't have thought to do or wasn't thinking of doing when the Titanic was floating nicely across the ocean. What does this tragedy make possible? Maybe we finally, get to find our true love, as even if we're hanging on to a life raft, like at the end of the movie there. But at least they found true love,
Right. Well, one of my favorite quotes is, difficulty is what wakes up the genius. And we all have that genius inside. And the genius gets hidden, when we get stuck in status quo because it gets comfortable and then we don't want to take on the risk. But now that's just been pulled out. So the genius is coming out. I mean, all sorts of genius is coming out of me thinking, granted, it's financially, I'm a real estate owner. I'm an Airbnb person. So a big part of my cash flow has been just eradicated right now. Mm-hmm. And can't do anything about that. It is what it is. Don't like it very much. That's why this next thing is very important. But I have to say, just the genius creativity that's coming out of me, that it is really fun, is I'm actually grateful for this. I don't like that the money's disappeared, but that's temporary. But I'm grateful for what it's done to bring out this next level of
That's great.
creativity that has been buried, so I didn't have to tap into it. And that's for all of us.
That's awesome. That's the similar quote, constraints drive innovation. And I think that's really cool, Krisstina, what you say, it's awaking the genius if we allow it, to be awoken. So we do have, guys, we have about 50 minutes left, and we'd love to leave some time for Q&A. So I'll try not to get in your way, Krisstina. Keep on rolling. As many of these 10 tips as you can get through. But guys, remember, you can get all 10 if you go to financiallyimmune.com. Is that the best way to get that information?
Yeah, that's get all 10. And it's just,
Okay.
it's a PDF.
Let's do it.
Free PDF. It's a gift for you to go through. But I like to cover these three. And so when I say that I've dropped you a map in the swamp, what a strategy is as a business term. You know, we throw the word strategy around a lot. But for my distinction, what a strategy is a strategy by definition, my definition is a plan of action. And what it means is we have an end in mind, and then it's a series of steps or tasks or tactics, a series of things to do in specific order to get the outcome we're after. So a map means you go 100 yards up there, and then you turn east. Then you turn, from there you go another 50 yards. So, but you can't go from you can't skip steps. So these are in sequence intentionally. This is a map of the exact things to do in exact order, sequentially. So the first thing is to cut the burn. The second thing to do is part of our survival strategy, plan of action, MAP, is what I call, don't just stockpile toilet paper, stockpile cash. So on the COVID side, we're looking at stockpiling water and toilet paper just in case. That was part of our survival strategy. Didn't want to run out of water and toilet paper. Still can't figure out the toilet paper one, but there we go. So anyway, on the finance side, cash is peace of mind. Cash is water. We run out of cash, we've run out of water. We run out of water, we can't live very long. We know that. So that's what cash is. Cash is our water. Cash is our oxygen, so to speak. So the more cash, the more peace of mind. So we lowered our burn rate, one, to burn less cash. Now we burn less cash, so if incomes have adjusted down, obviously we want to adjust our expenses, but assuming even incomes have stayed the same, cash is peace of mind. It's the lifeboat during the time of uncertainty. Nobody knows what's happening next. In different parts of the country, different things are happening. Here in Austin, we're opening up 25% today. Other parts of the country, that's not even a possibility yet. So what we know with them, and they could change it back, like we're out of control of a lot of things right now. So what we want to do is look for cash. That's why we reduced our expenses. So if income stayed the same, now where that money was being spent, now we want to stockpile the cash fund, the cash fund, the cash fund. And it's just about cash for survival. So if one person had 30 days of less than 30 days of cash, which is about 86 or 82% of the population, and another person had 6 months of cash, which one is feeling a lot of financial stress and anxiety and paralysis and fear right now? And which one's like, I don't like this, but they have runway, they have time to be able to navigate, use that genius and come up with things. Very different position. So if you have 30 days, let's find 60 days. If we have 60 days, let's find 90 days. Just however long we can go. What's that called? The business term we want to use here is called runway. How much runway do we have? So in your business, as a small business owner, how much cash do you have? Let's say our business expenses were $30,000 a month and we just reduced them to $20,000 a month. And let's say, so it was 30, now it's 20. Now let's say we have $30,000 of reserves or cash sitting there in our business. It was 1 month's worth of runway because our burn rate was 30. Now we have like a month and a half. So we're extending, by lowering our burn, we've extended our runway. So that's what we want to do. We want to have as much runway as possible so we have time to shift or pivot or whatever we need to do without the business sinking. And so even as a micro business owner, your burn rate doesn't include paying yourself. This is just the operational expenses to keep the business going, assuming you're not paying yourself. So we want to do that. How much cash do you have in your business, and can you find any cash? Well, that's what these big businesses know. Cash is king. So if Shake Shack says, well, I had $50 million of cash, if I can get another 40 million from the government that is basically forgiven, I have $90 million of cash, right? So they really extended their runway if they're assuming they weren't making any money, even though Shake Shack can stay open. Somehow that's an essential business, but we're not. So
Hey, if you've had their milkshakes, you'd understand,
this
Krisstina.
is true. This is true. I do agree there. I guess those milkshakes are essential. So anyway, but that's
point taken.
why. But that's why the EIDL and the PPP, we're looking for cash in our business to give us more runway. Incentivize that we can keep our employees or keep our payroll and keep them employed, because employed people are good for economies. The 26 million of unemployed applicants is not good for our economy. It's really scary.
Wow.
So, and there's a ripple effect to that.
And,
so that's
and now it's up to 30 as of this week, I believe.
Is it
30 million now? Yeah. So you're right, and the numbers just keep climbing. And that's not even including April yet. Looking at the official numbers. So how do we do that? How do we build a runway when our airplane is already approaching the end, so to speak, in the midst of this pandemic, this crisis? Can we do anything about step 2, or just we got to prepare for the next time? What do we do here?
Well, we do both, but it's to get creative if possible and just find. We've already found some cash by lowering our burn rate, so we have more runway already. Nothing else really changing. But that's where, if you haven't applied for the EIDL or this, and there's other like there's a lot for women business owners right now. There's a lot of grants opening up. I applied to the Airbnb grants and different things as a super host with a lot of investment or Airbnb properties. So there are actually many places, if you look, to go apply for cash. And so that we just want as much cash as possible, because cash is peace of mind. And some of it, maybe even borrowing it if there's a line of credit in your business. Now what happens is credits tighten when the economy shifts. So every day you wait, it's like waiting in line for the lifeboat. Those that got in line first for the lifeboat are getting in the lifeboat. Some people might miss the lifeboat because they waited. So get in line now. And so if there's a line of credit, maybe you don't use it, just you pay a small percentage of interest just to have cash in case you need it, that might not even be available a few months from now as credit tightens. We do that same thing in our household now. You do what you can from your business. Now we look at the same thing in our household. What's your runway in your household? What's that emergency fund we're always harping on? How many months do you have? Assuming no income. This is all assuming no income. How long can you last? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. We can last longer because we just reduced our burn in our household. But that's looking at some of my clients have, they've done cash out refis, they stood in line. Now, refis are going to be long to get. The lenders are really getting inundated. So if you're first in line, you're already in queue maybe, and maybe already have money to get your cash out refi and others. So it's looking at, are there places for low interest borrowing? Now, granted, still borrowing, you're going to have to pay that money back out of future earnings. But right now, this is survival. We're going to get our businesses back. We're going to do better than ever. Those that survive, we get a few war wounds, but we're stronger, more resilient, and smarter, and all those things. And we survive. So we're the ones get to take advantage of all the great opportunities once we're back to stable ground. But that's just it. Where can we find cash? I pulled money out of my whole life cash value just to have cash sitting there. It's sitting in now versus in my life insurance policy that was my amount there. I pulled a good portion and just moved it into my personal bank account. It's sitting there. And it's just peace of mind. I see the money when I pull up my QuickBooks, and it's nice to see a big chunk of cash there. It's just peace of mind, and I have that runway. If I don't have to use it, I won't, but it's there if I need it. So
and
yes.
Krisstina, you're so guys, those that are hearing this, some of you, as I see the list, some of you I know are already part of the revolution. You've already decided to take on the philosophy of being your own source of financing, which is what Krisstina and I are both advocates of. How do we know it's time to take money out of a whole life contract to put it in our checking account? Krisstina, why did you make that decision? If you're willing to share some of that, a bit more about that, why was that a tactic in your strategy? You know, we're in the midst of talking about strategy. Why was that a tactic you decided to take?
Because to me, cash is gold right now. So for me, I want to have cash. And now cash, where I used to have all my different buckets and different methodology that I teach, I basically have one cash bucket right now. And it's what's called an emergency fund / opportunity fund. So all my cash now is really allocated to emergency / opportunity, that even if I borrow it against my whole life at, I don't know, like a 3.8 or whatever that number was, it's sitting there over the short term. It's minuscule amount of interest I'm going to be paying to have the cash in my account that I can use it without having to apply for it or that. It's already sitting there. I can use it emergency wise if I need it. But opportunities are also going to be coming on the buy side, that if I can buy and get a return at something else, because I'm a real estate investor, I love real estate. Now I have a bunch of cash here that I haven't used. That's called leverage. I'm leveraging borrowing at a low interest rate to double or triple that same return, and then use the cash flow out of the higher returns to pay back the lower return loan that I just borrowed money from. That's how we build wealth, is by leveraging ourselves, which is why we love the become your own banker. I'm going to borrow money from myself. I'm the bank versus going to get a mortgage necessarily. Now I'm paying myself back there, and I'm making more money, and I'm building my whole engine here.
Awesome.
So now,
how do I give you a high five there, Krisstina? That's awesome. I'd say that you became the PPP for yourself, personal policy protection. I love that you walked us through that. Thank you for that. So for folks that have any questions, feel free to chime in and ask as you have them. We will be collecting questions as we go, but don't let the questions slip through. If we move right along, we'll forget about it. So let's make sure we ask Krisstina questions. I will be pulling over every so often to ask those questions, but Krisstina, keep us rolling here.
All right, you're welcome. And on the other side, even in the become your own banker philosophy, another place that many times we have money is in the equity in our home. And it's not something I would normally talk about, but if you can pull money out, if you have a HELOC as your own line of credit versus getting the line of credit from the bank, you're using your house. Now, the problem with the danger is people borrow money to consume more and buy more shit. Now they just have more debt. We're not talking about this here. We're all in a different type of philosophy and mindset. We're looking at leverage, we're looking at cash, and we're looking at survival. And we're looking at how we're going to pay this back through future earnings, through the opportunities, or through whatever we're going to do later intentionally. So it's just not borrowing for the sake of borrowing and then just have more debt. Hopefully,
that's great. Great advice.
But with if we even look, I've had clients that have, I've had them pull money out again, just have cash sitting there, peace of mind, can pay it all back if you need to. But a cash out refi might be a good time to look at this, just have the cash sitting there. Might be a good opportunity to buy if you have cash in one home and you can buy a piece of real estate again at, that, and use this cash that otherwise was just sitting idle in your house. This is the investor mentality. This is, again, become your own banker and use your money to make more money, use your money to make more money, and, and to survive in many cases. So there's just different ways to get cash. It's also a great time in that to negotiate cash wise. But to be looking at, it's a great time where if you do have any debt, again, on the personal side, where credit card companies or different lenders would have laughed at you in January if you said, hey, can I negotiate some of my debt or the terms of my debt? Now, a lot of these banks are going to want some money as opposed to no money, seeing these unemployment numbers. So now it's a great time to negotiate any terms on anything. And just pocket the cash, and let it sit there. Mm-hmm. So that's knowing your runways. We want to lower our burn rate. We want to extend our runway. These are assuming no personal income. The revenue, we have our burn rate, assuming no revenue in the business. We know our burn rate in our household, assuming no income in the household. We know our runway, assuming that worst case scenario, how long can we last runway? Now, the third part here, that these three things really work together, is at the onset, before you get to the other 7. But the next one is know your run rate. So run rate is another business term we really look at. It's a term that we use just for predictions. And so if my business was growing 10% top line revenue month over month, let's say, September through February of 2020, then I could have predicted, like, okay, I've got a healthy run rate, 10% growth month over month top line I think if everything stays the same, I can then go ahead and predict out 6 months from now where my revenue is going to be, as long as everything stays consistent. And maybe I can alter that by doing X, Y, or Z strategically. We look at future performance predictably and work backwards to make certain current business decisions. Well, so the run rate really, it's just a business term I like using, but the run rate really is predictable income. So now the next exercise is a business owner in the current environment we're in. What do you predict revenue-wise? Already, we have about 45 days or so of shifts already that have happened that are going to help us do that. So we have a little bit more information than we did 2 weeks ago or 30 days ago. But really just being very conservative, what type, with the shifts that are happening, where is my revenue of my business? What does it look like conservatively over the next 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days? Don't go more out than 90 days. We don't have enough information. So 90 days is even really a huge future right now. But just looking out. So we made our assumptions at zero revenue, but now we got our burn rate down. It was 30,000 to 20,000. Let's say we have about a month and a half of runway, assuming no income revenue. Now you can add your revenue back on. So now if we maybe we're making, I don't know, $50,000 a month, but now we're only making $10,000 a month, we still have a gap there of -10, but we're not -20 or -30. Meaning that our runway is going to last longer because we're not in the red for the total amount. But the goal, here's the goal now at the run rate. Know that predictably, and the question to ask yourself as a business owner is, what do I need to do to break even, to just cover the business burn? It was 30 burn, now it's 20. What do I need to do? What's the business strategy right now to be net zero? No profitability. I'm not even paying myself right now. I just need to cover the burn so I can keep afloat. What is the business strategy? What are the offers? What are the prices? How many units or what do I have to sell to hit net zero if possible? That's now becomes the business strategy. That's the whole plan of action. That's everything we're whiteboarding, and whatever we're doing is how to hit that number, because that's the lifeboat. We're not going in the red. And now we're holding on to that cash that we found that, maybe we can use for other things later on. But at least we've extended our runway again for whatever piece of revenue we can build on top of that. So we're not in the net. So that's to do some predictability, just some predictions based on information. And when you know these numbers, it's less fear, it's less paralysis. It's just better to know. Maybe it's still like I predict zero revenue, but at least you know your burn rate, you know your runway, you've looked for cash, you've extended that, but at least you know you have some control and you're going to do the best you can by knowing what numbers you have and what you can hit. And then now we do the same thing on the personal side, which is, what is your run rate? Okay, we said if we're micro business owners, we have no other source of income in the household, then we know we're pulling zero over to our household. But now if our household, let's say our household was $20,000 a month, now it's $10,000 a month, and we had $30,000 in an emergency fund, that would be 3 months. If we don't pay ourselves, we know we have 3 months to figure out the business side to get some income coming over. But if that is like, okay, my household's $10,000 a month, that's my burn because we got that down as much as possible. Now I can go over the business side and say the business burn was 20, my household business is 30. So I don't have to touch those emergency funds. Now I need the business strategy for 30 grand a month. And that's all I have to do. We're just keeping things afloat right now, just afloat for the next 90 days until we know more information. So you're looking at all these and make some adjustments and getting your calculator, looking your number, renegotiating maybe a few more things. But once you can get a plan for the net zero and you have some cash there for some flux on either side, you're solid. You're going to be just fine. And now a lot of it's not waiting it out. I mean, we're still working and pivoting and doing these different things, which are some of the others on the 10 steps. But at least we know I can survive this. I really
like that.
I can survive this.
I love that, Krisstina. I think that's phenomenal. It's an emotional move as well as everything else that you're saying that's tactical, but it's just good to know. Here's what my absolute must-have revenue forecast will be. What do I need to get to where I'm not in the red? So fantastic. I think you're right. Even if I happen to know it's $0 coming in, at least I know, and I'm not burying my head in the sand. Fantastic.
And that's it. Don't wait around. Don't bury your hair in the sand. I mean, just action. And when we're acting and doing something, it's a way to get over fear. Fear is when we're stuck in the swamp and we're not doing anything and the noises are getting louder and, and we're just stuck. So by acting and doing what we can do and being within what we can control right now, it makes all the difference is our psychology, our nervous system. And then we realize like there's that genius within. I'm going to be just fine because now that I'm doing things, I know my numbers, like I can do this. We're going to be just fine because now we've grounded the fact that we're going to be just fine.
And you've moved from past to present to future. What have I collected? What's the gunk in my gears, so to speak? That's the burn rate in my mind. What's all the Netflix subscriptions I've collected, to the runway, which is sort of what do I have right now, before I get paid again. And how long does that money going to last me? And then run rate is sort of looking into the future, as I understand what you're saying, Krisstina, is the future. How many months could we, what do we need to get our future revenues up to where we can break even, pay our obligations, keep our head afloat?
Right on. Exactly. And just kind of I'll conclude with the more we're tethered to the past in this case, I think that is the danger. So another metaphor I've used is just pretend we woke up today and we forgot anything that we're the same, our skills the same, our skill set, who we are, our work ethic, our genius, our creativity. We're the same, but we've completely forgot what we used to do. Forgot what our business did. We just lost our memory and we just showed up so all we can now do is look forward and make decisions moving forward. Like what customers are out there, what business is out there, what do I do uniquely suited that can help people in the time that we're in right now? We don't know what people used to pay, so we can't compare to what we used to charge. We're in this brand new space of, but like, how can I help people and what can they pay right now in the current environment? So now I go back and say, I train startups. And so as a startup, it's fun. Sometimes as business owners, we've been so far away from startup, but now is the time to start into that startup energy. When you're starting up, you don't know how you're going to make revenue. You don't know how much people are going to charge. You don't quite know who the audience is. You don't know quite, what the right, way to message your message is going to be. So that's why we have what's called startup capital, i.e. funds, cash there that we've either borrowed or we had investors or whatever we've had to have that startup capital give us time to figure out what the business model is going to create sustainable revenue and then ultimately profit. And usually we're in the red for a while as a startup. So if we can get into the startup mindset and do the same thing, it's a beautiful space to completely reinvent, to look at the shadow self, to maybe finally approach things like this thing called money that maybe we've been putting off a little bit or we haven't delved all the way in. Now is the time to do it. And so it can be a very exciting time, not just to reinvent our finances, but reinvent ourselves, our lives, look at our stuck place, our status quo, place we've added on some weight or gotten sluggish. And just, we lost our memory. So just game on. Let's really put on that adventuresome spirit and help others and be part of the solution and not part of the problem.
I love that. I love it. Well, it reminds me, and guys, feel free to chime in. What are you picking up as you're hearing Krisstina describe some of these droplets of wisdom? Truly, maybe it's a tincture, maybe it's a little bit of a vaccine against financial calamity and disaster and disease even. So write down what you're thinking about. As you're doing that, I'll go ahead and mention very quickly, Krisstina, because I know we have just a few moments for you to continue here. But I'm thinking about The Admirable Crichton. It's a play called The Admirable Crichton, and it's a pretty weird off the rails kind of play. It was actually written back in 1902, so we're talking Downton Abbey, pre-World War I England. It's a story about the butler, who's called Al or Alfred, and his earl and their whole community on a boat, and they get shipwrecked. And it's the earl, the very pomp and upstairs, the downstairs, and upstairs community almost flip-flop throughout the play, where the butler then becomes the governor and the earl has to take orders from the butler. And the entire community starts to respect the butler because he was, financially immune, essentially. He was able to pick up, tools, help the community become civilized again. And the very fragile earl wasn't ready and able to pivot and play a new game. And it was the butler who was able to pivot, play a new game, and all the roles became reversed. Now, what's interesting is he sees a boat one day, just himself. He sees that boat that could bring them all back to civilization. What would you do? Would you go back to the old game, or would you let that saving boat just float on by and continue to be the governor of this deserted island? Well, he's an admirable guy, so they all go back to the other island, England, and roles return to normal. But what's interesting is, guys, we have the chance and opportunity, if we're willing to take it, to play a brand new game. And the old game is we're never going back to normal, right? This is a new normal. So that's what's coming to my mind, Krisstina, as you share. I read Beatrice, you write, I need to learn my burn rate. I've not really been aware of all my specifics. Yeah, thank you for that. I agree with you there. I think, it's easy to let those software subscriptions kind of just nibble away at our cash flow. So anybody else have any thoughts and feedback, feel free to jot them in. But Krisstina, what else would you like to share and take us?
Yeah, just time is money, and those that take time to join webinars like this means I just say thank you to everyone, because this is how we're all going to get through this, is by sharing our wisdoms together and showing up and learning and maybe taking different action. And I'm just always honored that people are willing to spend some time to listen in and do this type of work.
Absolutely. You guys are here to play a new game, and, being resilient, being able to bounce back. I'll say one more thing about this financial immunity metaphor, Krisstina, because I think it's so apropos with the times we're living in right now. We're having a moment where, really we can choose to be resilient or be beaten down. And, the body's own immune system actually thrives when it bounces back from sickness. You become stronger as a result. The antibodies are now in you. You are resilient enough to never be faced with the same virus ever again if you get those antibodies. And that's the truth, guys. If you are willing to learn the lessons, I'm talking to myself too, by the way. If we're all willing to take the lessons that we just heard from Krisstina, and that we're all going to experience over the next 6, 9, 18 months, however long, to have more cash on hand, right? To know our burn rate. The next time this happens, and we all expect, maybe it's not exactly like this one, but there's been 3 major market crashes in the last 20 years. So the next time this happens, will you have your antibodies ready to rock? And will you be able to even take advantage of opportunities when these sort of situations happen next time? So keep listening to Krisstina Wise. Go to financiallyimmune.com. And Krisstina, any final words of wisdom, thoughts as we wrap up?
No, just thank you. I want to thank you for what you do and how you do it, and your message and your great spirit. So it's just an honor to know you and to work with you.
Well, thank you. It's an honor, and it's certainly reciprocal. Definitely, Krisstina. Keep up the good work and keep changing lives and changing minds at the same time.
Great. And we've got this recorded, so we can send that out to anybody if they want to watch the recording and go through it again, and just here to help. So if there's anybody, that I can help, Mark, just let me know, and I'm here for you and for your tribe.
Yeah, we've certainly passed people over to you in the past, and that'll continue to be the case. And guys, is the best way to reach you just through that website you've already mentioned?
Yeah, just go there, and one could Google my name if they really wanted to find me, and I'm pretty easy to find.
Now, remember, there's 2 S's in her name, guys, so don't forget that. But yeah, it's financiallyimmune.com. So Krisstina Wise, thank you so much for being on our webinar today, and we wish you safety, health, and, well, wealthy, and wise. So thank you very much.
Thanks, y'all. Thank you,
Bye.
Mark. Talk soon. Bye-bye.